What's up, guys? We're live, so we're just waiting on the debate guy to join us. So yeah, I'll just do some Q&A while we wait for him. He confirmed a few hours ago, so should be good. Hopefully, there's no last minute flaking again. That'd be super annoying. Did you guys enjoy the podcast with Adam Lyons yesterday? That was definitely an interesting one. To his credit, he did actually drop me his number, and we were texting back and forth, and he was giving me some feedback. So we'll see what happens with it. But props to him for following up. Yeah, so we're just waiting on another person to join. I'll just answer some questions in the interim. I don't know where the fuck he is. I'll just give him a few more minutes. Someone said Adam Lyons came off very fake. No, I mean, he is completely different in the way he presents himself than I am. But oh well, I guess everyone has their own opinion. I'm 5 feet 5 inches tall. Do you think that will make it difficult to get girls? It will make it more difficult. Yeah, sure, but it's still doable. Opinion on Snapchat if you're 19. I think it's largely a waste of time no matter how old you are. So I personally don't really recommend Snapchat. But yeah, granted, more girls that age will be using Snapchat. Someone says, interesting topic. I literally watched Jordan Peterson vid today on women's sexual desires. You should watch it quick. Um, yeah, I'll check it out later for sure. Someone says the one with Adam Lance was sick. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. How are you doing, Alex? And how's the dog go? I'm good. I'm a little tired. I didn't really sleep too well. The dog is always good though. Can you get a girlfriend even if you have autism? Yes. What are your thoughts on gas station rhino pills? Never tried them, but I would think that something you get at a gas station is probably not going to be the best. Have you heard from Tavi after you leaked his email? Nope. And I really don't think I will hear from him. Love the earlier video you've uploaded, so on point. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. How do you know what facial expressions to use when talking to girls? Well, you're definitely not like sitting there trying to like force a facial expression like, oh, let me do the smile. Let me do the smirk, right? So you shouldn't be thinking about facial expressions when you're talking to girls. Do you do private coaching? I do. If you're interested, just shoot me an email. Hey, bro. So I'm now seeing a woman that I knew way back when. She's a real brat. I know how to handle bad women. What I don't like is how to get her out. She tells me that the old stuff doesn't. Well, brats get turned off by dominance. So just being very dominant, that will turn her on. Some BDSM type of shit certainly can't hurt. I like this. One more eight-ball sail away from having enough to for PWF 2.0. How do you know when you shouldn't approach girls? Is it okay to approach girls with a guy? I approached one. She was very rude. Was it because they were kissing? I mean, that's got to be like a troll question. I watched your heated debate, and the one thing you didn't fight over was the weight room. She would have disagreed weights are racist, probably why she doesn't use them. Was the weight room. I'm confused by the statement. Nah, women don't like dominance. Women are aroused by dominance. They're two different and opposite shit. Um, okay. Adam Lyons had a shit ton of energy. Glad you have the opportunity. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing that blew me away the most is how energetic he is. I definitely don't have nearly that much energy. Uh, yeah, I mean, if you wait, what's the initial question? I mean, yeah, if you come up to a couple that's kissing and you try to like start a conversation with them, yeah, that's why they're going to be annoying. They're going to be annoyed. So yeah, I mean, that's I just think that would be like common sense. Like, yeah, probably don't approach a couple who's kissing. How to be dominant. Check out a video I have on this. I have a whole like detailed breakdown I did. It's called How to Be More Dominant. So yeah, check that out. Where the fuck is this dude? Hopefully we're not gonna get another flake tonight. That'll be like ultra annoying. Hinge girl won't text my number first. Give her number, says waiting. What would you do? I would just follow up with her and be like, "Don't be shy" or something. What do you think of semen retention? I think it's kind of dumb. Hey man, love your content as always. If a girl gives you her number but has a boyfriend and she talks about we can meet up as friends, should I escalate on the date or just be her friend? Uh, I probably wouldn't even bother meeting with her. That's me personally, but you can try either one of those. Have you ever done Ultra Miami Festival and is it worth it? Have I ever done Ultra? I have never been to Ultra. It just depends on what you're going for. If you're going to pick up chicks, I don't know. If you're going to have fun, then yeah, I'm sure it is. If you're into that kind of scene. Uh, where is, I don't know what the fuck this dude. We'll give him a little bit more time, I guess. Hoping this motherfucker doesn't flake. That'd be super annoying. What's the dating scene like in Miami? Quality, competition, attitudes, girls. It's very competitive. The quality is really high. There's really, really hot girls in Miami. Competition is also really high. And as a result of the high competition, a lot of girls are quite stuck up. So, yeah. If you're thinking about moving to Miami for the dating scene, I would say no. How do you know if a girl's trans without asking? Because when I ask, they leave. Uh, I mean, like, why do you think she's trans? Like, I'm not following. Like, you like any girl? Like, if a girl doesn't look trans, then I wouldn't assume. I mean, if you're really unsure, you can ask for her height. If she's like under 5'5", there's like close to zero chance she's trans. How old is Rhaegar? He is 3.5. How do you respond when a girl replies with one word question mark during initial icebreaker? Hey, trouble. Uh, one word or question mark. How do you respond when a girl replies with one word? I would probably just playfully call her out. I'd be like, a woman, a few words I see or something. Which place in the world has the best woman in your opinion? For me, Colombia. Or yeah, because they're hot, they're friendly, they're feminine. So yeah. Some femdom activities are hot as fuck. Not gonna lie, I understand most women in the minority for that. Uh, yeah, potentially. I don't really know any. How do you make a girl comfortable with coming over if you have multiple roommates? You just have your roommates go in their rooms so that she doesn't see them, and you just bring her to your room so she doesn't see the roommates. But yeah, that's basically it. What the fuck is this dude? Let me check my TikTok chat. He has my number, but yeah, I told him 8 p.m. How's this even debate? Okay. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. It's like 9:13. So let me just call him. We'll just call him live.
Hey, this is Alex Irwin. Sorry I couldn't get to this.
The actual fuck. This guy, like, I was talking to this guy, like, literally a few hours ago. He was, like, giving me a list of ideas and shit that he wants to debate about. Like, who the fuck flakes after confirming? It's so fucking gay. I'm still hoping that he shows up because I didn't get any indicators that this person was going to flake. Like usually when they are messaging you the day of, like they're going to show up, but I don't fucking know. Alex, have you gotten your haircut at Razzle Dazzle in Brooklyn yet? Yeah, when I first moved to Miami, I used to go there, but that place is really overpriced, so I don't really go there now. Oh God, I hope we're not getting flaked out. Let's give it like another 5 more minutes. I do have multiple debates set for Friday, so at the very least, Friday should be good. But yeah, this fucking gay. Gay, gay, gay. So anticlimactic. Yeah. No one flakes like TikTok social justice warriors. I don't know. They have like the highest flake rate ever. I guess because they get like cold feet and then like, oh my God, I might have to actually speak. I might have to actually get outside my safe space. No, no, no. Yeah, I don't know. The flake pandemic covers dating and podcasts. It definitely does. Well, that's gay. I don't fucking know. I don't know. What the fuck should we do? I don't really have any kind of backup plan. Maybe I don't know. We could react to a few videos on TikTok or something. I don't know. What do you guys want to do? Let me know in the comments. I did it. I cut out like an hour or 2 hours of my time for this. And if this person's not going to show up, I don't know. What do you guys want to do? Let me know in the comments. What do you guys prefer? Let Kevin Wilder call it. Yeah, we already agree we're going to do that next week, though. He said he's busy this week. My cousin wants to debate you on flat Earth. How are we going to debate that? Like, the Earth is around. Debate over. No, I mean, like, does he think I'm a flat earther, or like I don't understand what the debate is? How to join uh the debate? Well, first you have to let me know in the comments what you want to debate me about. Your flake rate would improve if you told me to watch former debates on the channel first. I actually do that, honestly. How do you deal with girls who don't like foreskin, uncircumcised penises? Never encountered that. Debate a religious person on the existence of Jesus. Well, I want to debate you about mental health of women. You will love that. Okay, but what are we debating about? Like, can you let me know what do you disagree with me on? Like, what like that's just a topic, but what's the disagreement? I think mental health is important. So, like, what are we debating? You have to like give me more specifics. Prank call Austin Summers. Let me see. Oh, okay. He's actually coming on. Yeah, so he had some tech issues. All right, so the debate is going to happen. Let me just tell some. So yeah, the debate is still happening, guys. He just texted me back. Oh, yummy. Would you debate Bobby's perspective over human rights being a thing. He doesn't argue with who's Bobby. I don't know who we're talking about. Erect to the PA who was a national white TV but epically bombed. That'll be interesting if you can tell me his name. Debate neo-Nazis from prison. They will love you. That's funny. He wants to debate on how the earth isn't round. Yeah, that's like not really an interesting debate. Like if you think the earth is flat, then I don't know how to say it nicely. You're a dumb fuck. No, he never called me out in a video. John Anthony versus Adam Lance is obviously the dream match main event everyone's thinking of now. That would be really fucking epic. Never gonna happen, but that would be awesome. I want to debate about the morality and fulfillment of casual sex. I mean, I don't even but what's the debate there? For some people, morality we can debate about, but fulfillment, like some people it's fulfilling and some people it's not. Like, can you give me like more details? Like, like if you want to debate me, that's fine. I'm not debating anyone, but you have to like provide like a little bit more context about what exactly is agree with me on. Okay, he's downloading a different browser. Okay, let's give him a second. But yeah, guys, plot twist: the debate is actually still happening. So he's just downloading a different browser. What's my email? playingwithfirechannel@gmail.com. Someone said the earth is not flat, it's a triangle. All right, why don't we let's fucking listen to some TikTok videos in the meantime. Some roast videos of me. We'll play a few, not too many.
And the reason I say that is because
let me go to my reaction. Mentions. Okay, let's take a look. Let me share my page. Okay. No, so someone's asking. No, it's not a flake. Debate is happening. The dude is just running late. He's having some tech issues. Okay, let's see what kind of mentions.
So what do you do for work?
I work in finance.
Oh, do you like it?
It's okay.
No. Ew. Like, if a man tries to touch you like that and you don't even know him, no.
Hey, so what do you do for work?
Don't worry, lady. No one's going to be trying to touch you. That's my only response to that. Okay, next one.
Say this if a girl does not want to give you her number. So this works really well.
okay.
And there you have it. You just say okay, and then you walk the fuck away. Because for some reason, you don't take rejection or no very well. So let's learn to do that. Just say okay and walk away.
Why do all these people look like they do meth? These are all like some like country blumpkins or something like that. Okay, what's this?
Do you really? Or
Yeah, truly.
No, you're fucking.
Why would I fuck with you?
Listen, fellas, don't do that whack ass bullshit. Motherfucker ain't got
Oh shit, we got country AMS.
no game. All up in her personal space. Look like she need to cover her goddamn drink. Then he got the audacity to put his hand on the neck. Don't touch the goddamn woman. It's not how it go in the real world. Towering all over the woman, running your fucking mouth. Just sit at the bar, relax. Enjoy the music, enjoy the conversation, and let it flow how it's gonna flow. Don't force shit like this guy. If you ain't got game, you ain't got game. But when you try to force game or you try to be, you just become a tryhard. The guy gets an F++.
Oh shit. Country AMS is not fond of my game. These people get funnier and funnier by the minute. Okay, let's keep going. I love this genius advice. Just sit back and relax. Oh, good idea, Sherlock. Okay, what's this? There we go.
Fellas, if you're using online dating,
I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't think this has anything to do with me though.
Yes.
Oh, cool. I'm a male stripper. So it's very similar to your job. You know, you take...
whoa,
This is literally unspoken Riz, bro. W, bro. This is W unspoken Riz, bro. It's so W, bro.
Yes.
Oh, cool. I'm a male stripper. So it's very
What the fuck is wrong with this dude? Oh my god. This is like pure comedy. It's just like the weirdest looking people ever.
Fellas, if you're using
Let's take a look at one more. Okay, let's take a look at this. Oh, video currently unavailable. They already took it down.
do this if a girl does not want to give you her numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand. Have a nice day.
Do this if a girl does not want to give you her numbers.
Oh.
Let's listen to dating advice from a 12-year-old little Asian boy. That seems like a great idea. This guy's like the epitome of everything that makes a girl's vagina dry. I mean, like really? Do people even listen to this shit? Like this blows my mind. Okay, let me see. Let me check on the status of this person. Yep, you need Chrome. Okay. Well, that was lulz. We had country AMS. We had a little 12-year-old Asian boy. We had some meth heads and some chicks that look like they belong in the zoo. Good lineup. Player 5, if you're talking to an A+ chick and she was DTF 3-4 months ago, but logistics were a major league problem until now, you stopped texting since, how would you re-engage her? Until now? Just anything really. You can just literally send her a meme and be like, hey, you, or something like that. Just really, the goal is just to get the convo started. She's either going to respond or not, so I don't really think the exact message matters. I would probably use some kind of inside joke or like some kind of flashback. Some kind of callback humor. That would probably be the way to go. How many people do reactions to your TikToks? About a dozen every day, or it used to be like a dozen every day. It's actually slowed down a little bit. Now it's like half a dozen a day. But yeah, it's a bunch. It's a bunch. Okay, this person is still coming on. Apparently, he's texting me, so what the fuck's taking so long to download Chrome? All right, what else do we have? Don't be this guy if you want chicks. Yeah. It's funny when people who've never been even like close to a vagina try to criticize my dating advice. Like, like what? Since he broke 100K. No, it started. I broke 100K on TikTok a while ago. It started with I had like one video that really pissed off the SJWs. It was like what to do for the girl. Oh no, it was the video about blocking. That's what put me on their radar. And ever since then, it was just like a spiral effect. But it was the blocking video that put me on the SJW's radar. But yeah, it had nothing actually to do with the channel size. Anyone over 5 million followers react on TikTok? Yeah, the Drew chick, she has like 7 or 8 million. I think she's the only one as far as I know. How come Jamal didn't come to your party? Because he lives in a different country. He lives in Brazil. So yeah. Can you read my Tinder pictures? Yeah, if you just make a post in the forums, or next time we do a Tinder profile review session, then you can just submit it as well. I guess maybe that's what we'll do in the future. Like when someone flakes, we'll just do like Tinder profile review or something like that. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. I might do something like that. Would you recommend Stitch Fix for men to improve their style? I've never heard of Stitch Fix, so I can't comment. I'm not really sure what that is. What are your good first date ideas? Either a bar near your place or your place. Keep it simple. Your comment is the best. Thank you, sir. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, let me see. Where's this person? Oh, it's taking him forever. Jesus Christ. I don't know why it takes like 20 minutes to download Chrome. You see, maybe he's like running on super slow, like dial-up internet that takes like a while. I don't know. For me to download a new thing is like 30 seconds on my computer. What was your first expectations when you did TikTok? You thought reactions to the video would be this bad? I never expected it, but it doesn't surprise me. What points do you agree with the black pill on? I think the dating marketplace is getting more competitive. I think that looks are very important. Yeah, I would say those. Height is very important. It's a custom clothing delivery service. How interesting. No, never heard of it. Are you still into MILFs? I won't turn down a hot MILF, but I don't specifically like, go out my way to find them. What if he's strong and won't actually show up? I mean, that would be some elaborate trolling. Do you believe Mr. 99% close rate? Be honest. I think in terms of the way you and I are thinking about 99% close rate, meaning like we get like 9 out of 10 girls that we approach. No, but I don't think I think he's measuring it differently in his head. I think the way he's measuring it is like out of the girls that he's talking to and the girls that show interest, right, that fall under his whatever, that he then makes an effort for, out of those he's talking about like 99%. So I just think it's a different way of counting, and he's counting it differently. Did you Frank Castle your girlfriend off the pot? No, never. Your thoughts on paying prostitutes? If you're into that sort of thing, go for it. Never really been my thing. Is 20-year-old too young for Tinder? No. Do SJWs not want socially awkward men to get laid or get better women? No, I don't think they do. Okay, let's see what he says. I did, but it's not running. I've put it in the application folder, but it's not showing up on my launch pad. Jesus Christ. Okay, let me try to help him figure out his tech issues. He's probably using like an old iPad or something. J-Wolf got roasted by Rolo today. Seriously. Oh, I'll have to take a look at that stream. I think casual sex is bad for everyone, directly and indirectly fucking up society. Really? That's what you think? That's interesting. Julian's Pimp was the best RSD product. From the ones I've seen, yes. Yeah, I don't know. If this guy doesn't show up, I'll do like Tinder profile reviews or something. Or just debate some random person from the audience. But he keeps telling me he's coming. He's just fucking having some tech issues, which does happen once in a while. Thoughts on fisting? I don't even know how to answer that. Is Rolo the biggest fraud? I wouldn't say he's the biggest fraud. That's a big list. Who popularized changing STDs to STIs? No idea. You debate the NoFap guys. But what am I going to debate them on? Like, I generally think NoFap is a good idea, so. Do you think government should regulate anything within the privacy of our own home with consent, of course? No, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. No, I don't think so. I'm not the biggest fan of jewelry for men. I'm going to away for a month, how to keep interest. I have a video on this. Yeah, so check it out. I have a video, how to text a girl if you're not meeting her for a while. How do you meet your girlfriend? Oh, thanks, man. I met her on Bumble, actually. Yeah, so it was Bumble. The girlfriend before that I met from Cold Approach at a bar. The girlfriend before that I met on Tinder. The girlfriend before that I met at a bar. The girlfriend before that I met at a bar, and that's how far back my relationships go. So we have, one, two, three of my girlfriends I met at bars, and two I met from online dating. And I've only ever had 5 girlfriends. I've been doing the 21-day confidence challenge. It really does work. Nice, man. I'm glad to hear. Do you rate Spencer Cornelius' channel? What do you mean by rate? I like Spencer's channel. I watch it. I get a good kick out of his videos, and I like Spencer as a person. What does that mean, rate? Do a debate with Undead Chronic. Yeah, I did that in the past, so we've done that. The fuck is this guy doing? Oh my god, I'll give him like 10 more minutes. How do you think game will change for the metaverse and virtual reality become dominant in the way social media is? I don't really know. I don't actually think much is going to come from this metaverse nonsense in our lifetime, at least. So I don't really think much is going to happen from that. What about a debate between Austin Summers and J-Mo, because they seem to disagree on some points in pickup? I don't think John would do it. So, yeah, I just don't see it happening. How often? Okay, he's typing. How often do you, what did you say? Mac. Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to help him figure this shit out. Wait. How often do you have a date with a girl you don't have much chemistry? All the fucking time. That happens fairly often. What point do you end the date? That depends on how hot the girl is. Thoughts on Courtney Ryan? I like Courtney. I've had her on the channel before. I like her. Yeah, I don't think she goes super detailed and nuanced, but I think pretty much everything she says is on the ball. But yeah, she doesn't go like super detailed. She does more like surface level type of stuff. But I think she's right about pretty much everything she says. How much easier it is to get a woman in Colombia compared to Miami? It's a lot easier to get a chick in Colombia, like a lot. Your tips got a girl who hate me to hang out. Thanks. Oh, nice, man. Glad to hear. Have you debated Coach Red Pill? No. I reached out and tried to make it happen. He never responded. I would totally be down for that, but I don't think he would ever do it. He seems way too much like a bitch. Thoughts on the Balkans? Never been there, actually, so I can't comment. Will you interview Addy A-Game? He was arrested for cold approach, but appeal got let out. Never heard of him, but sure, yeah, if he has like a following, people know who he is. Yeah, I could look into him. Okay, let's see what this guy says. He's having like an issue downloading Chrome because you do need Chrome for this software. I don't know how he's having such a hard time getting Chrome to work. I'm just waiting for him to, like, I see the thing, but okay. Yeah, I saw that debate. It was very interesting and quite amusing. I actually used that part clips of that debate in my reaction video to Coach Dipshit Pill. That wasn't my best joke ever, but yeah, Coach Douche Pill, we'll call him that. Favorite philosopher? I don't really have any. I don't really follow like any philosophy. Okay, let's see what he says. Okay, he's saying he's almost there. Okay. Apparently he just finished downloading it. Oh, let's see. I'm like 50-50 on whether this guy's going to show up or not. Who else do you have coming on for pods? Richard was chill. No one else is in the is right now currently in the works. I mean, I'm just always like coordinating and shit. And sometimes like people will respond to my emails like way later. Austin Dunham, me and him have been talking for a bit about getting him on. So that's gonna happen in like late summer. I'm sure there's a few other people who are like what's the term? Tentatively on the schedule. I just can't remember the top of my head. Coach Douchepill claims to have 3 18-year-old on rotation. Yeah, total fucking nonsense. There's zero chance that guy has any chicks on rotation, let alone an 18-year-old one. Will you interview David Tion? He's a former PA and argues his game is toxic and almost ruined his life. Okay, sure. I'll take a photo and I'll reach out to him tonight. We can see what this that fucker has to say. How much money do you make from helping men in their dating lives on YouTube? I don't make that much money from YouTube ads. If you guys notice, there's not many ads on my videos. That's because I just keep all the ad settings on the lowest one so that you guys get like the best video experience. So that's a very, very small percentage of my business model. I don't know. I make like probably currently I make like 15K a month or something like that. Personally, yeah, something like that. But it's not as exciting as it seems. My expenses are really high. I drop like 10K a month on like medical expenses and shit. So yeah, I don't really have that much money left over every month. I do live in a nice place, but that's about the extent of my of the things I spend my money on. I do eat really good food. I eat really good food. I live in a nice place. But that's about it. Like I don't really do anything else frivolous. Okay, there we go. Yo.
Hey, hello.
That took you so long, man.
I know. I swear I'm smart. I swear it. I promise I am.
What happened, man? You were like downloading Chrome for like half an hour or something, or?
Yeah, so I was downloading Chrome and it had this picture and it had like drag it down to applications. And I didn't have an applications like folder up, so I had to find how to find my applications folder, which I did that. But then when I dragged like the download to the applications folder, apparently that's not what it meant. What it meant was what was in the file. I was supposed to click that and drag that into the application. And so it was just me doing a bunch of like nothing to do something so simple, which is how my life usually goes. Doing a bunch of nothing to do something so simple.
Damn. Okay. Well, I'm glad you made it. We all thought that you were not going to show up. Everyone was saying,
I'm so sorry, y'all.
Everyone was saying he's trolling. He's just fucking with you. I started believing that in the end. I'm like, there's no way it takes this guy that long to download Chrome.
No, I am that technologically disadvantaged. So no, that is the truth.
It's all good, man. But yeah, so let's start off with a little quick introduction, and then you can just kick off. We'll just go through all the points that we were talking about one by one. We'll just go through one, discuss, and move on to the next one. But yeah, why don't you start off with like a very quick introduction so people know who you are?
Yeah. Hey, y'all. My name is Alex Irwin. I am a high school theater teacher in Tennessee. And someone who just happens to love to debate and have social and civic conversations. I want to preface by saying I'm no expert in the fields of feminism, social theory, or anything like that. I'm just someone who has interests. So please, I'm not taking a stance as someone who knows like the most about everything. I'm just someone who has their own opinions. So I want to preface saying
you're a teacher? You look so young. I thought you were like 20 and in college. You're a teacher?
I'm 25.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. You look young. But yeah, okay, man. So I'll let you kick it off. What was the first thing you want to that you kind of disagree with me on?
Yeah, I actually had started seeing the reason that I connected with you was because I had seen a video on TikTok on my For You page, and it was from a TikTok creator, and she had posted about her debate with you.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
you do. And that was really interesting to me because I mean, I was someone who agreed with her points, and specifically one of them that she brought up and that you all had a discussion about was the idea that all men crave submissive, and that all women crave dominance. And that's something that I immediately was just like, oh gosh, no. And I've had so many talks with my my straight friends about this, and it's something that I'm just like, no, it's something I wholeheartedly believe is a misconception and a teaching to implore misogynistic ideas into men, and the idea that they need to dominate.
Yeah, so let me kind of give a little nuance to that, and then you can tell me if you like kind of disagree after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me add some nuance to that. So I don't think it's like as black and white as that. I think that, let me think of the best way to explain it. First of all, we're talking about sexual dominance. We're not talking about dominance in like every area of your life. Yeah, a lot of girls don't want a guy to like tell them what to do or be bossed around. So we're talking specifically about it like in a sexual type of space. So I want to clarify that. The second thing, we're also talking for like, we're talking for like straight guys and like straight girls. So obviously, if you have like, I don't know, like two girls in a relationship, like it's obviously it's not like one of them is going to be more dominant than the other. So we're talking mainly for like a straight guy and a straight girl, right? So it's the second piece of nuance. And I think there are exceptions. There's some girls who are switches, meaning they can be dominant with one partner, submissive with another partner. But I think generally speaking, if we're talking in terms of averages, the majority of straight women like a man who's sexually dominant in bed. Would you disagree with that statement?
I don't know how. One, I mean, all of my like straight female friends are on that spectrum of they enjoy domination, but it's not something that they crave all the time. It's like this, oh, it's fun when we have it. And then I have my other friends who are the dominatrixes, and it's something that they get off on is the power. So I think it's, again, you already said it's not as black and white as this or that. But I would say that it's a common thing. And I think a part of it is maybe because it's also this taught ideology. But I think to teach that that's the way it's like meant to be is instilling a really negative idea in men's minds, especially straight men, that they sexually need to be this aggressive, when really they shouldn't assume what they need to be sexually. They need to be open to these sexual conversations, and they need to be having those conversations with their partner before they get into the sex and figuring out what their partner likes, right? To say, no, you immediately need to be dominating is kind of going to be whenever maybe the partner that they're with is one of those people who doesn't like that, and it may turn them off. So assuming that every straight woman is into that domination kind of sexual experience is kind of setting men up to be and encourage, this is broad, but sexual violence in a way. And so that is my disagreement with that. But I wouldn't say that that's not a common thing. I do believe, I mean, heck, who doesn't like to be a little dominated in the bedroom, right? It's fine. But again, the consent talking with your partner is the most important part, not the assumptions.
Yes. Okay. So let me kind of, there's two separate things I want to comment on. The first is the sexual violence aspect, because I think that's something separate. So yeah, like, are you familiar with the BDSM community at all?
Yes.
Okay. So in the BDSM community, like they get into some kinky ass fucking shit, right? Like a lot of which is like even too extreme for me. But there's very little violence in that community, right? It's all based on the idea of consent. So everything is without question only consensual, right? So you're not just, if you're really dominant in bed, doesn't mean that you're forceful or you're doing anything at all. Like those two things have no relation to each other. You can be super dominant without doing anything non-consensual, right? There's no correlation between those, right? So, and you can also be not dominant at all, right? But you could also violate a girl's consent, right? So those two things, we have to separate them because they're not related in any way. Because if they were, then you would see more sexual violence in the BDSM community, which you don't. You see less. Like the whole premise of the BDSM community is just based in consent.
And you're right, it's based in consent because they have those conversations beforehand. A lot of BDSM groups and the BDSM not festivals, what is it, conventions. I mean, people are, the people I know in the BDSM community are people who say, don't just think you know BDSM, research it, because it's all about getting that consent, talking about boundaries, figuring out what your partner is okay with, so that whenever you do these things that seem extreme to other people, you already know you have that consent there. And so you're right. The difference is, again, it's in the discussion beforehand of your partner and their wants and needs. That's the difference.
Yeah, it is a little different though. So when I say dominant, I don't mean do any crazy shit. It's more of an attitude and let's just say sexual style, right? Which doesn't necessarily have to manifest in you doing anything at all. Honestly, you could be dominant without even having sex with a girl. It could be just your style and the way you carry yourself. But if we're agreeing to the premise that the majority of women like a man who's sexually dominant, then I don't see why it's detrimental for me to tell men that, hey, if you want to be more successful with ladies, you should be more dominant, right? Those two things seem to follow each other. You don't have to be dominant in every single situation, but generally speaking, if most girls like a guy who's more dominant in bed, and you become more dominant in bed, you will get more women in your life. Those two trains of thought follow each other.
I think it's also maybe the wording, because what you're explaining sounds more like confidence. And I think, yeah, confidence is super hot. And confidence and dominance, it's a teetering line. And I think what you're really pushing for is people to be more, confident and forward with their wants and needs, which is very healthy. I think just changing that wording, because whenever domination and dominance has rooted meaning and has a connotation that's negative or really controlling, well, if you're just saying be confident, that's not really that domineering. So again, that could just be me hearing dominance and associating it with my lexicon of what dominance means to the world and the effects that it has had and kept the patriarchy, in power, is because of that idea of needing dominance. So whenever you tell men to be dominant, it's kind of pushing that same ideology that you may not have, but that some men are still trying to work out, which is, I need to be more dominant over women. Femininity is bad. And not bad, but femininity is less than me. I am the alpha male. And I think whenever you say domination, it's pushing that rhetoric forward. And while that may not be your intention, that is something that's just going to be created.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't mean it. This has nothing to do with the patriarchy or anything macro. This is purely a micro thing, right? So
micro builds up, right? Micro builds up, and the macro leaks into everything micro. Microaggressions, for one, with racism and with homophobia. These tiny things that we don't really think about because they're so ingrained in our behavior, but they affect someone else very slightly. Whenever you say, oh my gosh, you're really pretty for someone that size. I mean, it doesn't sound that bad, but really that's kind of hurtful. Or whenever people look at me and whenever I do something well, or I'm working out in the gym, and they're like, oh, good for you, but just because I'm a gay, queer man, then it's almost like this microaggression of, oh, I'm having to build up to this expectation for you, that a lot of people in minority groups have to do every day, is they have to feel like they are grasping at straws to try to feel on the same level as everyone else.
Okay. First of all, I got to change my sitting position. So, yeah, I think we're starting to talk about two completely different things, and we can talk about that, all that stuff as well. I think you and I are going to disagree on all this microaggression stuff as well. But going back to the initial point, dominance really is yes, it is intertwined with confidence, but really it's assertiveness. It's knowing what you want and not being afraid to go for it. There's an element of assertiveness. So let me give you an example. It would be like you're with a girl on a date or something like that, and I don't know, you want her to suck your dick, right? So instead of being like, hey, can you give me a blowjob, right? That would be not really dominant way to get a blowjob. It would be like, hey, check this out, right? Like that's a much more dominant way to go about it, right? So again, so it has a lot of it has to do with your approach. And it sounds like we agree with the fact that generally speaking, most women like a guy who's dominant in bed. So yeah, like I just don't see the harm in like what I guess the disagreement I had with the girl whose video you're watching to is she was saying, oh no, where are you getting this information from? No, most women do not like a guy who's sexually dominant. I was like, what world are you living in? Like every single girl that I've been with, hundreds, liked it when I was dominant. Now, of course, there's different levels of it. You know, for some girl, level 10 is sufficient. And some girls want you to go level 20. Some girls want to go level 100. Some girls want you to go level 5. There's different levels of it. Yeah, sure. That comes with like, you know, figuring out. So the first time you have sex with someone, you're not going to go to level 100. You're going to kind of, you know, feel out the situation and their vibe and shit. But, you know, going into it with a dominant energy like that can definitely be very, very beneficial for guys in terms of their success with women. And again, I think that those two things should not be tied in with violence in any way because they're not the same thing. I can see how people confuse them, but there's no, like everything assumes consent. There's no like element of like forcing a girl to do anything. That's not dominant. It's just being rapey. Those two are not the same thing.
That assumes consent thing is testy because you can't assume consent. You have to get consent, right? You can't just say, oh, well, she seems really into it. And 99.9% of women love dominance. So if I'm like, just whip out my dick right here, that's cool. I mean, sure, you might get head. It could be pity head. I know for a fact that I have had men who like do that and I get really anxious and stressed. I'm like, well, I mean, I guess I might as well help them out. And then afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? Because they were, it's not me being consensual. I felt pressured into it. And so assumed consent is a really like flighty term that I don't think actually exists. That's just non-consent, right? You need to get consent to do those things.
Well, no, I would disagree with that. So I think that
well, 1 second, let me check some light real quick. But you can talk. I'm listening.
You're listening? I mean, I can wait for you to come back.
I'm just turning on the light real quick.
I'll just wait for you. It's all good. Okay, anyway, so yeah, see, this is a double-edged sword because while some women say, oh, you know, you should always ask for consent, the vast majority of women, for them, it's a turnoff when the guy asks for it. Hey, is it cool if I kiss you? Hey, are you ready to have sex, right? That's usually a major turnoff to a lot of girls, which is why I always advocate feeling out the situation, right? And, you know, for example, if the girl's sitting on your lap, giving you the fuck me eyes, I think you're pretty safe to go in for the makeout, right? And if she really doesn't want it, she'll give you the cheek at that point. If the girl is like feeling your dick, I think you're pretty good to take it out, right? And have her suck it. I think that if she's like having you rub her pussy, it's a pretty good chance she's DTF, right? And then at that point, so that's why I think instead of always just explicitly asking for consent, I guess a better way of looking at it is explicit or implicit. And I don't think it's practical, or maybe it is practical, but it's not ideal for men to constantly ask for explicit consent because that will turn a majority of girls off. So you have to look for implicit consent, right? But implicit consent is still consent. It's still the same level of consent. It's just because the girl hasn't said, I want you to put your penis inside of me, doesn't mean she doesn't want you to put your penis inside of her.
Yeah. And I can understand that because there is like whenever you're in the heat of the moment, you can feel out the vibes, but as long as I just don't know how much your viewers or your followers or yourself discuss and know about what those vibes are, you know, and talk about here's when you know not to, you know, and finding those boundaries because some men may just here be dominant and the woman is like looking at them and then he just whips out his dick. Obviously that's him not understanding a situation.
Well, it's also just a complete lack of like calibration. Like
yeah. So as long as you are teaching or understanding that you can't assume consent, you need that kind of implied back and forth from the other person kind of giving you the okay. And
Yeah, so
being
I teach gradual escalation. So basically, and that's like it's kind of exactly what it sounds. So before you go for the kiss, right, you're gonna maybe sit a little closer to the girl, put your hand on her knee, right, and then you're seeing how she reacts to that, right. And if she pulls back, then she's not ready, right. So at that point, you would take a break, right. Maybe try again a little bit later, talk to her a little bit more. But if she's okay with that, then maybe you would brush past her hair. If she's okay with that, you might get a little closer. If she's okay with that, then you have the green light to go for the kiss, right? If she's okay with the kiss, you might kiss her neck, right? If she kind of tenses up, then you would stop, right? Because just means she's not comfortable with that. If she starts moaning, then it's a pretty good chance you can go further, right? So it's a very slow, gradual, progressive path, which I think really preempts the idea of like having the girl be like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" happening, because everything is slow and gradual. At each point, you're basically gauging the girl's reaction and seeing, if she's cool with it, right? And if she's down to go further.
Yeah. I don't really have a no to that or anything. I think no, that is something, as long as you can be aware and be mindful. I just think also a lot of people just have this idea that they don't need to have these conversations about consent because it's not hot or whatnot. But I'm telling you, especially in the modern era, first times especially, because they can be scary on both ends. Having that discussion, whether maybe it's like you guys are having a natural discussion, like talking about sexual interests on the date, at the dinner, while you're watching TV or whatnot. That way you can understand a little bit more. So I think it's. I would love to see a push in people in your field of help talking about how necessary it is to have open discussions about the wants and needs of the other partner consensually, because it's just as important. And as someone who has also suffered from like sexual assault and abuse, it's really this eye-opener of realizing that we just don't teach men in particular. We don't teach men the importance of talking and having those conversations and knowing the difference between manipulating a situation and like playfully having a consensual moment with someone. Because the moments of mine and a lot of my friends, like sexual assault moments, are moments where the guy was really nice and advancing, but not being too advanced. And so you just let things happen and let things happen. You may say no, but then they'll make a comment and then they'll keep letting things happen until you feel like you're a bad person for not letting it happen. And so that's these mind games that a lot of men play when it comes to sex. And then they're like, well, I mean, they let me go, so that's consent. And it wasn't really, right? So making sure to put consent first as one of your teachings, and then bringing in the whole, hey, and after you get that, dominance. Whenever you guys are hanging out and she's staring at your dick, whip it out. Why not? Surprise her, like that kind of thing. But as long as consent is like the foremost understood thing that is taught, I think that is perfect. Because I'm not hearing a lot of things that I disagree with you on whenever you were talking about the other stuff. It's just, I really want to hammer in that idea of consent.
Yeah, I mean, I think consent is important, of course. Although, again, I'm not like a fan of teaching getting explicit consent, because I think that can really ruin the moment. And I've had many client situations where they told me, "Oh, I asked the girl if I could kiss her, and then she said, 'Ew, why would you do that?' And then she got turned off." So I've just heard more than enough stories of those for me to advocate people going for implicit consent rather than explicit consent. Now, I do think that if you're going to get into some kinky ass shit, that's probably when explicit consent would come in more. Like if you want to fuck the girl in the ass, right? Like that, I would look for that explicit consent on that. That's why I would advocate something like the first time you hook up, keeping it more or less basic, right? And then like after you have sex with her, you can have a conversation about like her kinks and all that stuff. But yeah, like before doing something like really like extreme, like really choking her or fucking slapping her or spitting in her face or fucking her in the ass, for those things I would get explicit consent. But because I don't know how you would get implicit consent for like anal sex. That would be like, oh, she's wagging her ass, that means she wants to get fucked in the ass. But for the other things, I would look for like implicit consent. That would kind of be my take on that. But I also will say this, like I think with most cases of like sexual assault and whatnot, it's not like a case of like misunderstandings. It's usually a case where someone is like kind of knows what they're doing, right? So it's usually like I'm just having a hard time imagining where there's can be like a full on like rape situation, which is just a case of misunderstandings. Because usually with those, every time I've heard a rape story, and I've heard a few, right, like from women, it's always been like I told this guy no and no and no, and he wouldn't stop, right? It's always like that. I've never heard one where it's like, oh, I just didn't tell him not to do this and he did this, right? It's almost never like that. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen in theory. I'm just saying that's very rarely how it happens. It usually is someone choosing to go past no's rather than someone not understanding the girl.
Well, it is possible, and they still go past no. It's the act of like, and something I had to work through was it wasn't my fault because I didn't fight. I said no, and my body just like went into lay there and let things happen.
Well,
because
that's the thing. You said no, right? You said no.
I said no.
And that person chose to ignore your no, which is really fucked up.
Yeah. And then they tried to persuade me into yes. And instead of saying yes, I just stopped talking and just they continued, and they may think, well, oh, he wasn't fighting me or she wasn't fighting me. So obviously I wasn't doing anything bad. She let it happen. And I think
I don't think there needs to be like violence in place for it like to be rape. I think, but the no is usually in place. Like, so like whether it's a guy or girl, usually the word no gets said, and usually more than once. And it's usually someone choosing to go past the no rather than like them not understanding. So what I guess I'm getting at is I don't think you're really going to have cases of sexual violence due to negligence. It's going to be like a conscious case of someone like being a piece of shit and going past a no rather than someone just like not reading the situation. Like you might get an awkward moment from someone not reading the situation, or even like a weird moment, but you're not going to get full on sexual assault from someone just like not picking up on cues. That's going to come from someone like actively like choosing to push past a no, which is obviously messed up, of course. And like I certainly would not advocate that ever. Yeah, like if a girl gives you a no, then like that's no, right? I mean, you can maybe try again like much later, but like yeah, like you would leave it at that. You certainly wouldn't try to like convince her or something and give her like 20 logical reasons why you should fuck her.
Give her a BuzzFeed article about why she should fuck you. Here's 20 reasons.
Yeah. I mean, another thing is also like you should like pay attention to like body language signs and stuff like that. You can usually even preempt a no just by picking up on the person's body language. So like I rarely get no's because I can pick up on the body language. So it's like if I sense the girl's uncomfortable, I'm just not going to go for the makeout or something. I'll just wait and build more comfort before I do. So if you can read body language cues, you can actually like really minimize the chance of you even getting a no in the first place. But yeah, it doesn't sound like we're disagreeing on much. But yeah, like the big disagreement I had with that chick is like I felt like she was being very disgenuine when she said like most women don't like a man who's sexually dominant, which I was like, that's pure nonsense. Like, and I was trying to kind of figure out what her, where she was coming from with that, because she said, oh, all your arguments are based on your personal experience. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I don't have any kind of study to support this, but what are your arguments based on? And she like couldn't really answer that question.
Probably personal, because I think whenever you assume based off of your personal experience and then teach that to everyone, it's kind of projecting your personal experience as the truth, which I may like have friends who know a majority of their girlfriends who don't like to be dominated sexually in the bedroom. And I do know women who are like that. I also know rape victims who are the opposite, who like to be dominated in the bedroom. I know rape victims who prefer not to. I know women who haven't experienced that who prefer not to. I know a vast majority of different women with different preferences. But I'm not going to put a staple and say that, 99.9% of women enjoy this because of my personal experiences. Here's how everyone should act because of my experiences. I think that is kind of limiting people's ideas and mindsets. And maybe that's the women that you surround yourself with and find. But I do think it's not a set in stone rule. And to say it as such, especially when it's just your personal experience, is almost like a religious debate of, well, this is what I've always believed, and I'm just gonna put this as the truth.
Yeah.
You know?
So let me comment on that. So you're right in a way in terms of like proof. Firsthand experiences are pretty low in the evidence hierarchy. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, there's no double-blind, placebo-controlled study about like what chicks like in bed. So we do have to rely on first and second-hand accounts. Now, I will say I have a pretty large pool to draw from because I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of clients at this point. Right, I've been doing this for 5 years, and let's just assume each one of them has been with like 20 girls, right? So I have a really large pool of stories to draw patterns from. So it's not just limited to my personal experience; it's also like goes far outside of that. I also interview a lot of girls on my channel. We do a lot of podcasts, so I do have a really big pool to draw from, right? But it's not based on like some kind of study. That is true, but I still think that doesn't automatically negate it. In terms of hard, yeah, of course, there's no hard number. The 99 was just me being just what's the term, hyperbolic, right? Yeah, there's not a hard number on. I don't know if it's 98 or 99, but I would stake my life. I would stake all my money that it's the majority of women do prefer a man who's more sexually dominant to some extent, and that I would argue that the majority of women who are saying they don't like that are either virtue signaling or they just haven't discovered that side of their personality. Because I've had many, many girls say to me, like, wow, like I never knew I liked the guy who's dominant because I've never been with a guy who's dominant, but now I love this shit. Now the next guy I hook up with, I want him to be dominant too. So a lot of women, they don't, maybe they're not that sexually experienced, so they're basing what they want on like what they think they should want rather than experiences. So yeah, that's another thing that I would very confidently, stake my life on. But yeah, it doesn't seem like we're disagreeing on much. Do you have anything to add on that point?
On that point, no. I do personally. I still disagree, but I don't want to. No,
Okay,
I feel like I've said it.
You can keep disagreeing. We can keep going back.
No. It was only on the point where you had said that like it's not sexy to ask for consent, or that like it doesn't get anywhere, and it's just something that to me, as a sexual assault survivor, like it's just wild that people, and knowing since the Me Too movement and having plenty of conversations with women who like would prefer to have at least a conversation about like sexual preferences or sexuality before just immediately getting into sex. And I do wholeheartedly believe that is really important to have, or else one, you won't really know if you guys vibe sexually. You won't know if you all want the same things. You won't know if they're even interested, that kind of thing. So while you may say it's unsexy, I would say one, it's safe, and two, it is surprisingly, it reveals that you are open and emotionally available whenever you can have conversations like that, and you're not assuming. And assuming is a big thing that women hate that men do anyways, right? You assume so much, and vice versa. So all this assuming that we hate that each other does, I find it so strange that we're assuming what people want sexually and what is okay sexually. And that's something I will say I just disagree with. I understand that feeling a vibe, yeah, that can happen, but nothing is better than having that conversation and setting those boundaries beforehand just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I would argue that there's a level above that when it comes to, I don't know, social skills or whatever we want to call it. And that's when you can know all that stuff without even talking about it, when you can read her body and you can read between the lines. And that does come from experience. There needs to be years and years of pattern recognition and dates for you to get that. But like now when I'm on a date with a girl, I can like really gauge very accurately to a high degree of probability exactly what she likes in bed after half an hour of talking to her. And like girls are always blown away. They're like, how did you know I like this and this and this, right? So at this point, I'm just so good at like sensing vibes. And yes, occasionally I'm a little bit off about like one little thing, right? But the majority, like over 90% of it, I'm right about. So I do think there's a level above explicit, and that's when you can just like pick up on all these things. I think girls really get turned on by shit like that when they're like, wow, this guy can like read me, he knows everything I want without me even having to say it. So I think you get to that point.
That's like this outlier thing, right? Of, oh, I'm really good at reading women, but to assume that you know what would get you that one thing you didn't guess wrong or that you didn't get right, having those conversations, and then using that intuition to really provide a great experience for them during the whole shebang. But to teach men like pattern recognition and to treat men as if there's some AI that needs to figure out from a vibe what women want sexually, I think one that puts a lot of pressure and unneeded stress on the guy during the date to one, be overly focused on the sexual outcome, and two, to make them probably not even be present in the conversation. That's going to probably turn off the woman. So why not be present, have the conversation if that comes up, and for the most part, just be present and have conversations with your partner. And then whenever you guys choose to go to the bedroom, you can have a great time after having that conversation.
Well, I would prefer it personally if it was like as easy as me being like, if you could just be like, hey, so yeah, I'm kind of feeling you. Are we gonna have sex tonight? Oh yeah, like, is it cool if I choke you a little bit, slap that ass? Like, I would prefer it if the world worked that way, right? Because that's easier, and that's an easier thing for me to teach all my clients. It doesn't require any pattern recognition. The problem with that is the vast majority of girls do get turned off by that when you're that explicit about it. That's the issue. So this is not done for the sake of the guy. This is done for the sake of the girl. I think most guys would prefer to be that explicit and direct about it. I just think most girls don't. That's the issue.
I mean, I would argue that the vast majority of women would prefer that you ask before you do things. I mean, there's a difference between lightly pulling someone's hair and slapping their ass, and being, or hey, just whenever you're mentioning that, hey, I would like to be aggressive during sex. I don't have to be. Can I be aggressive with you? Do you think you can take it? That kind of thing. That's hot, while also stating that you want to create a boundary if it needs to be, without necessarily saying, I'm going to check through this list. I think men are so obsessed with shitting on consent that they like almost create this fake outcome that sex is eventually going to be signing a contract and going through and being like, I can't pull your hair, can't call you this, can't do this, as some kind of joke, when in reality, we are still not having open conversations about sex that we need to have, because men are pushing away from it because it's not hot for the woman. And you said something like, I'm doing this for the woman. What's for the woman or for your partner is to make sure you get consent. That is the most thing you can do for your partner, is to make sure that that's what they want. And if you're saying, oh, well, they're not going to like that, how do you know unless you do? And you said that you get guys to do it. I would argue they're just doing it wrong, right? That's the same as if someone took your class and they're like, well, it didn't work. You'd probably say, well, you're just doing it wrong, or it didn't work out. And so for me, I'd be like, well, I don't think they're having the conversation correctly. I think they're maybe being a little assumptuous, or they think that because they're having the conversation, that guarantees them sex. The goal is not to get sex, or it shouldn't be. The goal should be to get the ability to have connections with people that may end up with sexual satisfaction. But whenever men are taking classes like that and they are expecting sex, and they take your things and they're like, I'm going to do this so I can get sex, and then it doesn't work out, they may get angry, or they may think that the woman is being prude, or they may think this because they have this assumption that I'm doing all the right things to do to get sex, and I'm doing this. And it's putting a lot of pressure on the outcome and not the process of just becoming a person who can communicate correctly.
Okay, a lot of things I want to comment.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so multiple things, somewhat related, somewhat unrelated. So first off, I've never heard of, and at this point I have like somewhat of a following. I've never heard a single incident of it, like any of my followers, getting any kind of like type of situation where there's sexual violence or anything like that. And I think I would have heard stories about that. I also think most guys who are just going to like fucking push their way past no, or not even going to be watching my videos, because it's like, why would they even need to learn game if they're going to be all rapey and shit? So I think that's another thing. That's just my speculation. Now, in terms of the previous thing you said, I would be open to reconsidering my opinion if one of two things were shown to me. One was some kind of an objective study that shows that asking for consent explicitly doesn't fuck up the mood If someone could show me that, I don't know how that would be done. Or two, someone who was like similar to me, who had a different set of experience, who was like, whoa, I actually did an experiment where for the next 20 girls, I explicitly asked them for consent and it didn't actually turn them off. If I saw that, I would be open to reconsidering my opinion. I've just never seen that. Never seen it happen. The closest I've seen was one other dating coach. What he does is right as sex is happening, like after they're making out, when he's about to put his dick in her, he's like, yeah, you really wanted. So that's like his way, but he does it in like a flirty way, which that makes sense. I can see that. Like, yeah, you really want me to fuck you? Yeah. Say, please, daddy, right? That I can see working. Okay, that's fine. But at that point, you're already about to have sex anyway. So at that point, like the girl's already down anyway, because you've already got her like naked on your bed. But yeah, if I could see that, it's just like every single thing I've ever seen has been that girls are like, ew, when the guy asks for it, it just ruins the mood, right? And less so nowadays. They say that on social media because that goes against like the Me Too movement. But like privately and even like on podcasts, I have had many girls say that. And like when I was getting into game, I also had a few of those situations when I was kind of learning things where I would be like more explicit about asking for it, and it would like blow up in my face. So yeah, I would need to see something like that to show that it actually doesn't ruin the mood for me to give that theory some credence, which I don't believe that could happen. And last thing I want to say is in terms of, I forget, what was the other thing you mentioned? You said something about, there was one other point you made.
Was it about the teaching men and them expecting sex, that thing?
Oh, yeah, expecting sex. Yeah, so I think everyone has different goals. Well, I don't think you should expect sex because no one owes you anything, so the girl doesn't owe you sex. But I think it's okay for guys to go in with the goal of having sex, but I don't like the word getting. Getting implies that I'm taking something from you. You're losing, I'm gaining. I see sex should be a win-win where both parties win. So there's no getting sex from the girl. It's having sex. So it may seem like we're trifling over little details, but I do think that's important because I don't believe in this like zero-sum type of mindset where you get sex from the girl, she loses sex. It's like you both get to have sex, right? It's an act that requires two people. But I don't think there's anything wrong with guys going in with the mindset of, hey, I really want to have sex with this girl. That's my goal, right? I think that's totally fine. Again, as long as you're not expecting it to happen. Because yes, I do think like that can just lead to a lot of disappointment because not every girl's going to want to have sex with you. That's kind of like my take on all that.
On the point of you would be willing to take my theory of the consent if there was a study, right? Which your stance also doesn't have a study on it. It's based on that. So we're both having these ideas that are based in our personal experiences. And you're saying you're willing to change if I showed you a study. I would also be willing to change if there was a study done, that kind of thing.
The study I said mostly as a joke. I was saying like if there was like, because you're right, I am operating off firsthand experience. If there was someone who was like in my position or similar to my position who said, hey, I have a lot of firsthand experience. I actually tried, like, hey, Alex, I actually tried asking 10 girls explicitly, hey, are you ready to have sex? And it didn't ruin the mood. If that happened, like someone had firsthand experience like that, I would also be willing to reconsider.
Yeah, but let's a big study or anything like that isn't going to happen. But let's take these two sides. I don't know what is my hand doing there, but what happens if you assume or do your side is you may get laid, but also there's a chance that you cross some boundaries that you didn't expect to because you didn't have the conversation about consent. If you take my way, which is to make sure that you're always having that explicit consensual conversation in some way, then if you have sex, it's consensual. And if you don't have sex, you don't have sex. And to me, the better of the two is to never have this could be crossing a situation and instead have maybe you don't get sex, but at least you know it's consensual. And so that's where my mindset is. I don't need a study. I could, and I may change my mind, but without the study or without these conversations, let's look at the two outcomes. And one of them is more positive for both parties and maybe means for you, if you, like you said, I don't get sex as often. oh well, but at least you know it's consensual. And with the other, it's I may get sex, but also I may be crossing boundaries or assuming too much in that. And so that would be my little like philosophical, we'll look at the outcomes, which one really has both parties in mind at that point would be there.
I see your point. So you're basically arguing, well, like, yes, with this explicit consent thing, you may get less sex, but you don't take the chance of crossing someone's boundary. My counter argument would be is that I don't think you need to. You will cross someone's boundary even if you're not explicitly asking for consent, because again, like, the girl will say no. And again, the sexual violence, like I was saying earlier, doesn't happen from misunderstandings. It happens from someone choosing to ignore a no, which is, of course, something I would never advocate. But
I think you're getting ahead of yourself just a little bit with your idea of sexual violence, because like my rapist was someone I knew who was a friend of mine. Most rapes are date rapes.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah.
People that they know.
Yep.
So they take advantages of situations and they are already close and comfortable with you to where you think what they're doing is okay. What you think that you're the one overreacting because they're kind of manipulating a situation. And yes, they push past no, but for the most part, it's them doing things to make you feel like you can't say no. And if you do, then that's less than. And it's sometimes harder than you think to say no for different people. Some people can say no, scream, whatever. Others, like myself, when I was in those shoes, it was a brief no and a shutdown. And so it didn't get, a lot of rapes don't get violent because it's just a mental cross of the, I want what I want, I'm going to take it, and I don't care what you say. You know, so whenever you're like, most of these are sexual, like no one's going to be violent. None of the people watching my videos would rape anyone. One, I think that is a lie. Rapists are everywhere. I'm sure, I don't want to assume, but you may have one or two who have raped someone like watching you. And I have friends who have probably raped people. I don't know, because they don't say things. They don't say, oh yeah, I raped this chick last night, right? They are like manipulative people usually who use their friends to get that sexual gratification off.
Yeah, I mean, the first part of what you said, yeah, I mean, I've heard that before. Yeah, most rapes happen from friends or whatever. So but this goes back to another thing that I always say is look for people who want the same thing as you, right? So if the girl wants to be just friends and you want to fuck her, that's not a situation you should be in the first place, right? That's like, I would advocate against that situation even coming to fruition. So like a big part of what I teach is like screening. So basically like you're getting a feel for whether the girl's DTF before you even meet up with her, right? You know, you might ask her like, what are you looking for on here? You might like sexualize the conversation, flirt with her and stuff like that. So yeah, like a big part of what I teach is like screening and looking for girls who are looking for the same thing as you, to even avoid the situation in the first place where you're on a date with a girl and like you guys want two totally different things. Aside from the whole sexual violence perspective, it's just more of like it's a waste of time if you guys want two different things, your and her time. So yeah, I would argue against like even being in that situation to begin with, if you guys want different things. And yeah, I mean, I always tell chicks like the guys you should watch out for, not guys like me. It's guys who like are really nice and who you friend zone. Those are the guys who are going to be like you have way higher of a risk with than like guys like me, like cocky little frat boys.
This is kind of a different point, but it goes into the like my ideologies and things like this come from feminist theory and feminism. And there was a video recently that you had posted maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago about feminism today and if it has a place or not. And actually one of my points that I think that we had a disagreement is that I personally believe that feminism and modern feminism has a place in today's society and is very needed. And I remember we had talked about that this could be a point that we discuss. And so I thought that was a nice leeway because these issues are sometimes a lot of women's issues and feminist idea issues because men can get raped too. So they getting that. But moving into feminism talk.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. So I think a good starting point would be to make sure we're talking about the same thing. It's just for you to define what you think feminism is, and what do you think are some of the things that haven't been accomplished yet that needs to be accomplished. Because as far as I understand, for me, feminism is equality for women, and specifically equal opportunities, not equal outcomes. And those two are different things. So just to quickly clarify that, equal opportunity would mean that a black guy, an Asian guy, and a white guy have the same chance of getting into Harvard, right? There's no like, not one doesn't get special preference. Equal outcome would be it's 30% black guys, 30% white guys, 30% Asians, right? Those two are different things, right? So the way I saw it is, so going back to feminism, it's like a woman has the same opportunity as getting that same job as a man, but not equal outcomes, right? So how do you define feminism, and what do you think are some of the things that need to be accomplished?
I define feminism as feminist theory defines it, which is the liberation and fighting for equality of all sexes and all gender, and all genders. So that is feminism in itself does fight for the rights of men when it comes to rights that are being like more when it comes to the ideas of like toxic masculinity and forcing men to think of themselves as domineering people. Like feminism is saying no, like you need to think more on the level, and you shouldn't say that it's bad to cry for men. But also feminism is making sure that women have bodily autonomy, you know, with the Roe v. Wade being overturned right now. That's a big one that is just setting our country so far back. And in general, just the things as a society that we have let creep into our everyday lives of our perceptions of gender, and it is trying to deconstruct that and put us back onto a seeing each other as eye to eye, that we are equals and not less than or greater than when it comes to social ideas. That is my understanding of feminism.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think that if you define feminism as like equal rights for women, like women having the same rights as men, 99% of men would be feminists, right? I think very few guys are like, I don't think women should have, you know, voting rights, or I don't think women, I don't think women should get paid the same as men. Like very few men are actually going to advocate for that. I'm certainly not one of them. Like yeah, of course, obviously, but that's already largely been accomplished. That was first and second wave feminism. So I do think first and second wave feminism definitely had a purpose and accomplished that goal. But third wave feminism, which where we're at now, seems to be to me more about power and control rather than like actually accomplishing anything of equality, because the equality part has already been largely accomplished. Roe versus Wade is an interesting one, with abortion aside, because that one is interesting because it is and it is not related to feminism. But with that aside, equal rights have largely been already accomplished. Like, for example, the wage gap myth that gets thrown a lot. Women make 88 cents on dollars a man, right? But that's been debunked by like literally every economist. When they look at the data, a man and a woman working the same exact job, same amount of hours, they actually get paid the same amount of money. So I just don't know what the goal of feminism is anymore. If equal rights have been accomplished, like what are we trying to do at this point?
Women are still making less money, but it's usually disabled and BIPOC women who are not there. So right now, feminism and what people see as feminism has been white feminism, which is shat on today for obvious reasons, because for the longest time, feminism was about the rights of the white woman. And it overshadowed the rights of trans women and Black women, Indigenous women, women who are disabled. And so right now, the push is for us to focus on those areas. And while I still think that there is work that socially needs to be done to keep women, to get women on an equal status seen in society, I think most of it is going to lifting up the women of these marginalized communities, because Black and BIPOC women make a lot less money than men and a lot less money than white women. And that is proven, and women do still make a little bit less. And you can take acting and actors as one example. There's so many, which it's silly because they get paid so much anyways, but a lot of times the women are paid less than their male counterparts for movies where they are on equal standing. But then that's just an example. There's so much more. It depends. Economists are very biased, and you can tell on both sides. But in general, the consensus is still that women do make a little bit less money than men for the same job. So that is something to still push. And I think it's just because of social. We have boomers still in power who are holding a lot of these ideologies to heart, and some who are not, but some of the ones in power right now, like in the Supreme Court and within our government, because we do not vote as we should, are holding a lot of sexist, misogynistic ideas. And I think right now a big one is for trans women, and for trans women to be recognized as women, along with BIPOC women.
What does BIPOC mean?
BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Okay. Yeah. So let me comment on that. So the idea that women make less than men comes from taking the aggregate of all the money women make, all the money men make, and looking at the difference. And yes, there's a difference when you do that, right? But when you look at, the problem with that is it doesn't account for the fact that men and women typically gravitate towards different careers, and men typically work longer hours. Once you account for that and you look at men and women in the same career, same level of experience, working the same hours, the wage gap just disappears, right? And this has been like studied by the left, the right, by everyone, right? And it's always the same conclusion. It's either very negligible, like 1 cent, to the point where it's not statistically significant, or it's not even there, right? So I can pull up a whole bunch of studies with that from every type of source. So that goes away. Now, in terms of the color thing, I wonder though, is that a socioeconomic thing or actually a race thing? Because my speculation, it would be a socioeconomic thing, because we know that, Black people on average are, a bit poorer than white people, right? And, when you're poor, you make less money. So thus, you can see how that would come about. But what we would need to look at is a Black woman and a white woman working the same job, same level of experience, to see if the Black woman gets paid less. And if I severely doubt that, like, you'd have to show me the data on that. That's what we would need to see to determine whether there's any kind of discrimination going on. We can't just take the aggregate of all Black women and all white women, because there's a whole lot of factors not being accounted for, primarily, again, socioeconomic status.
I am trying to occupation like the census, the United States Census is still identifying a wage gap and whatnot.
Can you share the screen so we can deep dive
I'm
into it?
on my phone at the moment, just because I didn't know if it would disappear and say.
Can you tell me where to find it, and I'll just pull it up on the screen?
United States Census Bureau. I just Googled gender gap to try to see if I could find anything.
States Census wage gap. Okay, let's take a look.
And it was from 2020. It is narrowing, but it is still there, is what it says.
Okay, so yes, okay. This is talking about the national median earnings for civilians who work full-time year-round past 12 months was 53,000 for men compared to 43,000 for women, right? True, yes, but again, this is not looking at men and women working the same jobs. It does not take into account the fact that men and women typically gravitate towards different careers. Men typically gravitate more towards STEM fields or things that involve more risk, which are more likely to pay more, but also more likely to be dangerous. Women typically prefer more like safer jobs, right, on average. So again, we need to look at men. So let me pull this up. United States wage gap, job adjusted. Right, that's what we really need to look for. Okay, let me search it this way. I'll show you. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Wait, no, this doesn't get into. This doesn't really show you the numbers. Let me find this. Okay. Okay, no, this doesn't address
I
it
have
either.
another one,
Okay, there we go. I found it.
UW, that has specifically like about race and the wage gap.
Okay, I'll pull it up right after this. Let me just share the screen for this. Okay, this is Time, so pretty reliable source. Okay. Wait. Where is this? Okay. Wait. Woman is between 100. Okay, 1 in 5 college girls. Okay, there we go. Women earn 77 cents for every dollar man earns for doing the same work. In fact, no matter how many times the wage gap claim is decisively refuted by economics, it always comes back. The bottom line, the 23 gender pay gap is simply difference between the average earnings of all men and women working full time. It does not account for differences in occupation, positions, education, job tenure, hours worked per week. When such relevant factors are considered, the wage gap narrows to the point of vanishing, right? So again, like this is, yes, when you account for all those factors, it disappears. But yes, if you look at the average of all men and all women, then women will make less, but that's not because they're being paid less for the same job. It's simply because they're generally gravitating towards different jobs. And like, this is something like you could definitely like look into more, like yourself, but yeah. What's the one?
Which, on the second one, it was talking on the second paragraph on that, it was talking about how the reason for that is not because women just happen to choose different choices, but it's not free for them to go and have the same access to the jobs that a lot of men have when it comes to getting management positions and whatnot. They're less likely to get it. It also had mentioned that like STEM right now, there's a big push to get women in STEM, but for the longest time, it didn't have women, not because women weren't good at it, but just because of sexist stereotypes that women should not go into scientific fields, which make a lot of money. And so that's another reason that the average median is that gap, is because women are not getting the same access to those jobs. The women who are in those jobs are pushing and fighting, but I think socially, we do still have a construct of the stereotypes that keep women away from wanting to get certain jobs or from just getting those certain jobs, because the people who are in power hold those misogynistic views still to this day.
Well, I think like the people in power, they're not sitting there. Like, I think this is like a weird notion that some people have, is that like people in power sitting there like plotting to like keep people oppressed. That's not really what's happening. They actually don't really give a fuck about the average person. They're too busy focusing on themselves, the people in power, right? So in terms of access to the same jobs, I would argue that if anything, it goes the other way. For a lot of these STEM fields, a woman actually has a higher chance of getting that job, all other factors being equal to a man, because they're trying to meet diversity quotas, right? You see that with management, you see that at Google, you see that at so many like different type of fields. So I would argue that if there is a bias, it's towards women actually getting the job. So I would argue women have more access to those jobs, not less access, if anything. I don't think it's super substantial, so that's why I don't like really raise it as an issue. But yeah, I would like a lot of these companies that actually have, like, if all other factors are equal, they'll give the job to a woman. Because again, they want, to have more diversity that looks better, because they'll make more money. That it ultimately comes down to the companies making more money. And right now, being more inclusive is, better publicity, which i.e. makes you more.
It was a really funny thing that I had seen about someone at Google. They had developed an AI to help sort through applications, to send applications so they can start getting hired. And it was working really great. And then they started noticing that the AI noticed a pattern in the fact that they had a lot of white people and a lot of guys. So the AI would stop accepting people of color and women, or it would be very few, because the AI was going off of the pattern of the company's history, and that this AI learned to be misogynistic and racist based off of the company's hiring patterns. And so it started to work, and then they were like, wait a second, we're not getting a lot of like black people in this. And then they would go back and look at the applications, and they were perfectly fine. It was just that they had like a really black sounding name or something like that. And it's just like an anecdote to say that we try to take something as like clean as an AI or a computer to do this work for us, but our computers taking learned behavior and applying it, and the learned behavior that computers and AIs are learning nowadays is misogynistic and racist, and it's because that's still present in our everyday. I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we are eradicated of misogyny and racism, but I do think that we can advocate for a better tomorrow, and I think we are doing it. I do. I believe you, and I think that feminism, there's a lot of stuff that we have, but the reason I think modern feminism is important is because right now the class struggles, the race struggles, and the gender and sexuality struggles are so important to give a voice to, that feminism, and also I was reading some articles about the need of feminism and how it is an educational tool. If you engage with feminist perspectives, activist research and anti-capitalist and anti-globalization movement are often mutually constitutive. They create a community that is learning and engaging and having conversation, to, like activist communities. And it was talking about how different activist groups for different communities kind of move past those social boundaries of class when it comes to their availability of education. So people who are getting into the feminist movement who are really young, who maybe don't have the greatest public school systems, are going to have access to a form of education and reading and a community that will educate them in a way. Same with like activists, like racial activism groups, or like the Trevor Project with the LGBTQI plus community. And so just having these movements is really important because it is creating community and creating a knowledge and a dialogue. And I think to eradicate feminism and say that feminism is not needed kind of doesn't actually take a look around and say, well, you know, the world isn't fixed. You know, there's plenty of other things that we can focus on. And having this group here as the voice for it, I think, is still relevant.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, I'm not advocating for eradicating feminism. I think people should be entitled to be in whatever community they want. So I'm not saying there's something wrong with someone belonging to the feminist community or whatever. But it's almost like you and I live in like two different worlds, which is what makes these conversations interesting. Because that's not how I see feminism nowadays. Largely, what I see feminism is it's not so much about achieving equality, but more about shitting on white men. That's really what I think the majority of it, at least I see online, is just like shitting on white men. Like not so much like fighting for anything that much anymore either. There's countries where feminism is really needed, like Saudi Arabia. Like women there, like they don't have the same rights as men. Like so there, yes, like totally makes sense. Saudi Arabia and all those countries, feminism is needed because yeah, those women do not on paper have the same rights as men or in practice, right? In America, like I think that when you've already accomplished your goal, it becomes confusing. What should you do next? And of course, there's causes worth fighting for in America. We have a lot of issues, you know, like environment, freedom of speech, so many issues in America that exist. I just don't think we really have that many when it comes to equality for women because we've already largely achieved that. We've achieved outcomes of opportunity. So now at this point, it's outcome. So I keep getting those words. We've achieved equality of opportunities. So at this point, it's like, let's achieve equality of outcomes. But that's like taking things 5 levels too far because there will always be differences between men and women that you can't really account for. And to try to erase those is just silly. Like, for example, if a girl goes on OnlyFans and shows her feet, she will make $20,000 a month. If I do that, no one's going to want to fucking see that show and make zero money. Right?
You would be surprised.
but just to keep it, yes, sure. There might be like a few dudes who want to watch my feet, but just to make the point, a woman, like let's put me at like a 7, right? A woman who's like even worse looking than me will make way more money than me on OnlyFans, right? And I'm okay with that because I realize that people want to watch women naked, but they don't want to watch me naked, right? That makes sense to me, and I'm okay with it. So there are some things, but that doesn't mean I don't have the same opportunity to go on OnlyFans, right? If OnlyFans was like closed off to me, that would be messed up. I still have the same opportunity to go on OnlyFans and make the money. It's just that we're going to have different outcomes, which is okay. I think it's okay for men and women to have different outcomes, i.e., women gravitating towards certain careers and men gravitating towards certain other careers, as long as everyone has the same opportunity. That's what matters at the end. I think we've largely achieved that. Maybe there's some small, tiny exceptions, but it's already been achieved. So now it's like this movement is kind of like lost where to go. And I see it's just become about like power and control and shitting on white men, which is like something I can't really get behind because that's just kind of bizarre to me.
I do think that empathy in general is lost on my side and on like just throughout the world. But I do, because I think everyone wants to have a scapegoat, and I will agree that right now the cis white male, I'm not saying they're a marginalized group, because they still have plenty of power in today's society. And equal opportunity.
Yeah, no, I don't feel like a marginalized group, but yeah, it's definitely
but
used as
they are the scapegoat of issues right now.
Yeah.
And while it's fun for some jokes and whatnot, I think that doesn't make the problems disappear by continually making jokes and also not listening and educating and having conversations with cis white men. And that is what a lot of my friends will on the internet claim to do, is like they just constantly like will make Brett or Chad jokes, you know, about like these.
I mean, I see it all the time on my TikTok. It's like literally whenever I comment on anything, you can't talk about this. You're a straight white man. Oh, sorry. Jesus Christ. Sorry. I'll just like not be a white man. Sorry.
Now, there is a difference in like things you can't talk about. Like I personally, I don't believe that we should be going around saying the N-word. And also I don't think that it would be right for, especially if I had a big following and if you had a bigger following, to have a conversation about race relations in America, because like, what are we going to bring to that conversation? Right.
Well, I think we can, the N-word I think is a little different. I don't drop the N-bomb on the internet because for obvious reasons, but what's it called? The race relations, I don't see that as problematic at all. You and I could, just because we're white doesn't mean we can't talk about race.
Well, like, it doesn't mean that we can't talk about it. It just means like almost like, because I'm assuming that this brings you a following base and like it maybe is monetary for you. So to have two white guys on a podcast or on something talking about race relations without actually having like someone who is experiencing that, it's almost a little tone deaf. And you can do it. It's just going to be like, really, really awesome. You have so many opinions. So just being aware of like knowing where your voice needs to be heard and where it can be where your voice can be is important. And so there is almost this breaking down slowly of the cis white male like construct of oh, the world doesn't revolve around me anymore, which is good. It shouldn't revolve around anyone, right? It should be an equal going. But I do see people being very, very mean, and I don't like that. And so I because I am a pacifist all the way. I'm someone who just, I want to talk to someone. Like I love having conversations like this. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, you're just this cis white guy. I'm not going to listen to you, because I think that doesn't show empathy at all. And I'm big.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You are the exception, though. I do find, like, for example, on TikTok, like the TikTok community, most of the people who disagree with me, they will not talk to me. They, like 99% of them will not have conversations. And I'm pretty nice about asking. I'm like, hey, like, why don't you come on for a friendly debate? We'll discuss it. No, you're a faggot. Like they will like literally just like completely ignore me and like just like like insult me and like make all these like crazy theories that like I don't know that I'm this or that, right, instead of having a conversation. So I do very much respect that your your attitude of wanting to have a conversation. I do think there needs to be more conversations. I guess like another thing I would say, this is would you say you consider yourself like, is it fair to say you consider yourself like more on the left, right? Is that fair?
I am very, very leftist.
Okay. Yeah, I figured. But okay, so this is a question I've always had for like people on the left, and I would consider myself somewhere in the middle, right? So I'm not like on the right or anything. okay, we agree that like, you know, women should have equal rights. Like that's something people on the left, people in the middle, and people on the right agree with. What blows my mind is that people on the left, they're so focused on like this marginal inequality that may or may not exist in America, but they never talk about like the Middle East, where there's like insane inequality where a woman can get beheaded for like doing something that, you know, her fucking husband doesn't want her to do. And that's like real fucking misogyny and sexism. But the left never talks about that. They just like focus on like the easy, I guess, scapegoat, which is like, oh, this person in America said this mean thing that's sexist on Twitter, right? Rather than like the real fucking sexism that exists in the world. So I guess that's like my question. Like, why not focus on like the real big elephant in the room instead of focusing like on these like small potatoes?
There's, I guess, 2 points to that, which is one, and from the concept of, I find it interesting that a lot of people who do say that are conservatives who believe in like a states' rights mentality, nationalists, like only worry about ourselves. So to that mindset, I would say, wait a second. So now we need to worry about other people and other people's like ideas. I thought that you only cared about America and that we should only be worrying about America. That would just be what I would say to someone who had that nationalist idea.
Yeah, I'm not a nationalist, just for the
And then second point, I want to preface again by saying, one, I don't know a lot about or have enough in my brain to have a actual like thing to say about that. But I will say that I'm also pretty sure that it's either Saudi Arabia or somewhere in the Middle East that their government has more women in it than ours does.
It's definitely not Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian women are not allowed to do anything.
They are allowed to drive. They're
only allowed to drive as of like very, very recently.
Yes, like things are going their way. And also I do believe it's either Saudi Arabia.
It might be one of the minor countries like Kuwait or one of like the oil-rich countries. It's certainly not Saudi Arabia. No way it's Saudi Arabia. Women in Saudi Arabia can't really like work in government or anything.
Literacy rates are.
But let's just assume that there's a country in the Middle East where there is more women in government. That still doesn't change the fact that like they're really fucked up when it comes towards the attitude towards women. And if we're going to focus on feminism, like those are the people that need to be called out.
It's cultural, right? And it's something that if I had my way, yes, I personally believe that eventually we need to move past nationalist borders and we need to have a globe worldwide understanding and government in a way. That's a radical idea that I have. If we're going to have government, that's the kind of government I would like us to have, because I think we need to have these communications. But I also don't know a lot about the culture enough to have my opinions and to say, oh, let's talk about them. They have it even worse. I'm all for helping women and having refugee women come here if they so choose. But if they're in their country and they're doing well for themselves and their culture, who am I to shit on it as a way to have a scapegoat to avoid the issues going on in my country that I have control of, right? To be like, oh, well, this is going on. Look over there, instead of, well, I'm here. And this is what we need to focus on and work on, right?
Well, I guess like my counter argument, if the end goal is equality for women, right? That's the ultimate end goal. Then there's one place where there's like 99% equality for women, and there's 1% where there's like 2% equality for women. It makes sense to like address the place that's I'm not saying we should invade them and like fucking like do it by force, but like at the very least calling it out, like I think was a good starting point. But yeah, like it's culture. Yeah, I get there's cultural elements to it, but you can make the same argument for America. There's cultural elements for why in the 40s and 50s women didn't have equal rights. You can make that same argument. So that to me is not convenient. That's not like significant enough. Like I think culture aside, you should still be able to call out like a complete lack of equality for women if that's like the ultimate focus of the feminist movement is equality. And there's a place where there's massive inequality, and I'm like, yeah, that should be called out.
It can be called out, but I guess what will that calling out do? Are we going to send tanks to them and be like with pussy flags and pussy hats and like being like,
no, but it could.
all
But no,
right.
that's an extreme case. But no, but there's more things like if more people call it out and you put pressure on the U.S. government, they might not do as many trade deals or hold back aid until the government changes. So there's economic pressures and all this other stuff that can be accomplished. We don't have to go to just like military, as like the only resort. There's a whole bunch of stuff that could be done like 5 levels before that. I'm not even necessarily saying like I'm not the biggest, like this is not a cause that's like I'm super passionate about, but if feminism was my cause and I really care about equality for women, I would just think that I would really focus on the big elephant in the room. Like, if like my whole thing was anti-Semitism in the 1930s, right, or 1940s, and there's one place where they're killing Jews, another place where Jews maybe are having a hard time getting a job, right? I would focus on the place where they're killing the Jews first, at least, and then once they stop killing the Jews, maybe we can focus on that. So that would kind of be my counter argument. But I do find that like the left and the right too, I think both of them actually live in this like weird bubble where they only address issues that are like kind of convenient to their position, but the other ones just kind of get ignored. So that's kind of what I find kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else to add on that, or is there anything else that we missed?
Not really. I don't have like studies or anything of the Middle East to be able to have any kind of counterpoints other than I think so. Like, I'll take your word for it.
Take my word for it, dude. It's definitely true.
Like,
it's not
I
easy
saw that on
to be a
TikTok
woman
once.
in the Middle
Yeah,
East.
sure.
It's not easy. Well, in Israel, it's fine, or like those countries, or like Jordan, it's okay. I mean, they do differ, but like, yeah, like Saudi Arabia, like Yemen, like those countries, yeah, no, like that's Afghanistan now, yeah, it's no fucking cakewalk to be a woman in those countries. That's for sure.
I mean, it's hard to live in a lot of these a lot of different countries in general. We are very lucky to live in the United States, and
yeah, I agree with that for sure. But it's a lot harder, I guess, like to be a woman in those countries than it is to be a woman in America. Because like in those countries, like you can literally get beheaded. Like there's nothing in America that can get a woman beheaded. So that at least, and on paper,
on paper.
So yeah. Okay. So what was the next point?
I think it was like I did have a mention about that. I do believe that toxic masculinity exists.
Oh yeah, I agree that it exists.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree that it exists. But the one thing that I can attribute to toxic masculinity is actually what you said earlier, is that men feel like they can't show emotions. I do see that as, yes, I will agree that is toxic masculinity because it's masculine and it's toxic, right? Thus it's toxic masculinity. But I don't know what else is toxic masculinity aside from that.
It's the idea that you need to dominate over another, dominate over some other kind of feminine or quote unquote weaker idea of someone. I had pulled up that toxic masculinity is phrased as such so that both its violence-based features and harmful consequences are highlighted. Toxic masculinity is indeed built upon the specific elements of hegemonic masculinity that foster domination over others. As behavior and attitude, it is expressed through a strong need to dominate and control others, a readiness to resort to violence.
No, I've heard that definition, but I guess what I'm looking for is like specific examples other than the showing emotions thing, because that one I agree with you on.
Well, I mean, domestic violence, that's toxic masculinity right there. You know?
I would argue that domestic violence is just domestic violence. I don't know if there's, because, okay, toxic masculinity. Okay, so in order for something to be toxic masculinity, it has to be traditionally associated with the idea of masculinity. So in terms of the crying thing, that is a popular notion that's in the that's perpetuated to men as like, oh, real men don't show emotions. But I don't know any community where it's perpetuated a real man beats his wife. Like that's not something that's taught that's not considered masculine in any sense of the word. That's not something that's perpetuated in the culture. That's considered really fucked up culturally. So I don't know how that one would fall under toxic masculinity.
It's the idea of wanting to dominate over specifically feminine or women. Like that idea of need for domination, because to be masculine is to be dominant, is to be the alpha. And so domestic violence, where that plays in, sure, women can beat men too, but the reason they beat men isn't because of one of control over the feminine mystique. it's usually just a sense of control and power. While with men, a lot of times it comes from that rooted idea of I'm the man and I don't know how to handle my emotions because they tell me not to, and that I get angry, and a man is supposed to be angry and be aggressive and be
but there's no notion in culture that man is supposed to beat his wife like that.
That's the result of the masculinity, and the toxic masculinity is their action will then be to beat their wife, which is bad. And no one is saying that's a good thing. That's why it's called toxic masculinity, is because their ideas and notions of what is expected of them to be masculine has led them to not express their emotions correctly, resort to anger, and to resort to violence. Because if you leave masculinity and the traditional masculinity and the traditional masculine ideas and let that fester, where you shut off your emotions, where you see anything feminine about yourself or other men as less than, and feel that you are above women in the hierarchy of life, that all will result in a toxic masculine outcome.
But there's nothing masculine about domestic violence. It's absolutely not masculine in any way to beat your partner. Like that's not considered a masculine notion. Like not crying, yes, that is traditionally considered masculine. But beating your wife, that's not considered masculine. That's just considered being a piece of shit.
Yes, but is aggression, or the phrase "boys will be boys" whenever they are fighting one another, right? And boys are play fighting and whatnot. Oh, boys will be boys. So instead of teaching boys to not fight whenever it comes to disagreements, and instead teach them communication skills, but we decide not to because boys will be boys. Because the idea is that boys are supposed to fight it out. Boys are supposed to have.
But one key point is boys are always taught never to hit a girl. Like that was like taught to me from a very young age, which is why I've never hit a girl my whole life, right? You know, like because it was like indoctrinated in my head, like you never ever hit a girl, right? So that's something boys are indoctrinated with as well. So I would argue that the notion of hitting women is actually anti-masculine because it goes against what you're taught. Because there's something very unmasculine about hitting a woman. It's like really you would hit a woman? It's like it's almost, I would say it's not only is it not masculine, it's actually the opposite of being masculine, because it's masculine. You know, in masculinity, you're taught as a man never hit a girl, right? You never hit a girl. That's just like one of the basic premises that me and like everyone else I knew grew up with.
Toxic masculinity is not about society. Toxic masculinity comes from the desire to dominate, because that is something that's taught. And some people's idea of that domination is physical aggression and physical aggression over women. And that's bad, right? And that's a form of toxic masculinity. Same with, in general, just someone who you walk out to a bar, you know, and you like bump into another guy and you're like, oh, I'm sorry. What's up, man? What? You know, feeling the need to like peacock up, I would say is also toxic masculinity.
That I might kind of agree with, like over macho-ness. I would agree that could be, you can make the argument that that's tied in with toxic masculinity. But any kind of violence against a woman, I think it's really a huge reach to say that because it's not a masculine notion. There's nothing masculine about hitting a woman.
The masculinity isn't from the hitting of the woman. It's from the domination over the female species or the female idea. That is the masculine idea that they are believing in. Like, I'm man, you are woman, shut the fuck up, you know, like that.
But that's not something that's taught either. Like I've never heard that. I've never heard anyone who's been taught that. Like,
good for you. I mean, I come from a Christian background, where like a deep Southern background, where we weren't taught those things, but we were taught that the woman is supposed to do this and be
but I think that's a little different though. Right? Like a good woman should cook and clean. That's yes, but that's not going to get you to domestic violence. Like
it could. I'm not saying it always will, but mix mental health issues with toxic masculinity and then put them in an unstable relationship. That person is probably going to be a wife beater.
I just think that that stuff comes from people who are violent in general. Men who hit women are violent men. Women who hit men are violent women, right? There's just people who are violent. But I don't think that's in any kind of, because then you would have to say that all the women who hit men, all like the Amber Heards of the world, they're toxic femininity, which, you know, that would also be a stretch, right?
Well, to me,
It's just
toxic
violent
femininity is something
motherfuckers.
different. Toxic femininity would be the extremities of, oh, I am the less than, and I am the meek, and I am the, you know, I'm going to be reliant on men and not myself.
But do you
That's
think
toxic.
do you think in situation like a husband beating a wife or a wife beating a husband, do you think those are done for different reasons? Because I think it's basically the same shit.
I think socially they are. I don't have enough information to back this, so I'm willing to open and learn. But I do, from conversations I have had with people that have been beaten or have been in emotionally manipulative, emotionally unstable relationships, men and women, it usually is something different for the men, and it's this like need to feel powerful because of expectations. While with women it's the same way, but it's the expectations that they wish they had, in a way. Like, they want power because they didn't get power, and the men want power because they think that they're expected this power. And I think that's one form of mentally unstable, not healthy thinking. And then this is another form of mentally unstable, but also coming from this masculine ideals that we're taught.
I just think it has to do with power and control, and there's no elements of masculinity or femininity in violence. Like just being violent, controlling, and power, wanting to feel powerful. Yeah, I would say that men beat women to feel powerful, and women beat men to feel powerful. I don't really see any kind of major distinction there. I just think it's shitty ass human beings who want to feel powerful at the expense of the other person, right? But I just don't see how that is like tied into like any notion of masculinity, because it's the opposite of masculine to hit a woman. It's actually kind of feminine to beat your wife, because it's like, yo, just like it's if you think about it, it really is kind of feminine to do that, because it's like, yo, like, why don't you fight another man? You're gonna hit a woman? Really? You're not gonna fight another man?
But
Like,
do you also see how like that mindset is thinking of women in this like ability that I'm not saying that we should be hitting women. I think no one should really hit anyone, but I do think that also the idea of like men shouldn't hit women because women are like fragile beings, but they don't have that same thought for other men, is that misogyny of like women are less than, and women need to be protected. Women need to be sheltered and like whatnot.
well, women are, generally speaking, with the exception of like Ronda Rousey or something, or Holly Holm, women physically are less than men. Like, it's not a fair fight. Like, if I fight my girlfriend, we're the same age. It's not a fair fight. I'm not going to beat her because I'm a better fighter. I'm going to beat her because I weigh 170 pounds and she weighs 100. I have way more muscle. So I do think like that makes sense. That like, yeah, like women, like we do have to acknowledge women are physically weaker than men on average. So thus, it's not really fair for a man to hit a woman, right? Because it's not a fair fight. Just like it wouldn't be fair for like a 20-year-old to hit a 10-year-old, right? Like, that's just not a fair fight. Like, the 20-year-old is like way stronger.
Well,
So I think that
classes also have to go into it, because I mean there are women who are in the same weight class as me, or women who are in the same weight class as you. There are men who are in a less weight class than you, but it would be seen as okay to, like, if I was to do something the same that the woman did, like, boom, you can hit me, but you don't hit her.
Well, it still wouldn't be a fair fight. Like, let's assume I find a girl who weighs, like, I weigh 170. If I find a girl who weighs 170, I don't really have much fighting experience, and let's assume she doesn't have much fighting experience. It wouldn't be a fair fight because I have way more muscle mass, way higher bone density. It just really would not be a fair fight at all. Which is why, like, for example, to bring up another controversial issue, when you see trans UFC fighters, so you have a man who transitioned to be a woman, and then they fight in the women's league, they just dominate and destroy like all the whatever regular women, because they have all the advantage of additional both bone density and muscle mass. So it's really never a fair fight between a man and a woman. I mean, like, if a girl is like assaulting you, yeah, maybe defend yourself. But aside from that, like, I do think it makes sense never to hit a woman.
Well, and you had brought in this book, but like with the trans rights issue, like there are also like trans men who are biological like women who have transitioned to man, who have beaten men in wrestling competitions and like have done really well. There are also trans women who have gone and done poorly, like with the case of the really big one, the swimmer. She actually was doing really bad in women's sports, and then she finally worked hard and got this great, amazing like time. And everyone's saying it's a blame on her being biologically a man. However, her time is like still less than her best time in the men's. It's because bodies will change during transition and whatnot.
Yes, but the thing is that it never completely changes. A woman who transitions into being, a man who transitions to being a woman, even if they transition for like 5 years, they will still have a massive advantage due to additional bone density and muscle mass. They had 20 years of testosterone in their system. That makes a massive difference. If I'm getting ready to fight and I take steroids for 10 years leading up to the competition, and then I quit steroids like a year beforehand, I'll still have a big edge because 10 years of steroids did, a fucking number on my body, made my bones denser, made my muscle mass more dense, right? And that same thing will happen because men produce testosterone, women produce barely any testosterone. It's a massive advantage. When we get into non-combat sports, it's not as drastic of an advantage. So I think for combat sports, a no-brainer. Like, of course, you're not going to have trans women fight against like regular women. That to me is a no-brainer. With non-combat sports, I think the advantage diminishes. I still think it exists for sure. It's just less so when there's no combat. But I think the big thing with combat is like physically safe. It's not safe for a woman to be fighting a trans woman because again, that's not a fair fight, and that woman could get fucking murdered. So yeah. So I think
there are also weight classes still in the UFC as well.
Yes, but again, in the same weight class, a man will have a lot more. A man will be like 8% body fat. A woman will be like 18% body fat. Women have a lot less muscle and a lot more fat. Men have a lot more muscle and a lot less fat.
But during the transition and taking the hormones and taking the estrogen hormones and the T blockers, where you stop producing testosterone and being on that transition,
but that's still doesn't change the decades and decades of the additional bone density and muscle mass that you have from before you transition. It still doesn't change that. It's just not a fair contest. I mean, they've looked into this, and it's like, yeah, like a trans woman will have more bone density, more muscle mass than like a woman, all other factors being equal.
Then what about intersex men and women? Like,
what do you mean by intersex?
There are lots and lots and lots of intersex people in the world, and those are people who have like XXX or XXY, or basically they have both, not just genitalia. Sometimes it's one of the genitalia, but their chromosomes and their genetic makeup is of both sexes, of the ideal binary sexes.
I've never heard of that. I don't know. I've never.
They're commonly known as hermaphrodites.
Right. I thought hermaphrodites only had the genitals of a man and a woman, but they still had either XX or XY.
No, intersex, you have like any combination.
Okay. I've never looked into it, so I'm not really sure.
But that's something that at that point it's like, is it really about the science and the biology, or is it about, in a way, a misogynistic idea? Because there are also trans women who are competing in fighting competitions who are doing bad. But you're going to say that this one trans woman who's doing well, it's because she was biologically a man. So does that diminish everything that these women who did beat the other trans women, does that diminish everything that they've done? Or, and in general, I think that's sports and gendering sports is like a little silly, and we've reached this point now where we can probably have
I completely disagree. Like, let's
Really?
take something like tennis. Like Vanessa Williams, right? Best female tennis player, one of the best female tennis players on the planet, right? On the planet.
Yeah.
She played against a guy who was ranked like 300 or 400, like very medium tennis player. He destroyed her. He won like 10-1 or something like that, right? And she even said, she's like, yeah, there's no way I could beat a guy who's like way less skilled than me. So if you get rid of the sexes, women like Vanessa Williams won't be number one. They'll be like number 300 at best. And I just think that's so unfair to female athletes to do that. I don't know. That's to me is like the pinnacle of unfairness to women who've dedicated their whole life to like pursuing a sport and being like excellent at it, and to take it all away from them. Yeah, I just think it's like kind of messed up.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah. But we were talking about we kind of got off track. We were talking about what were we talking about before that? We were talking about toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, so I think that some elements of masculinity are good. Like the idea, like don't hit a girl. That's logical and that makes sense. And I think that should be perpetuated. Like
I don't think that's masculinity though. I think the idea, that's like an action. The idea is for masculinity is about aggression, domination, and what's the word? Emotional.
I don't think masculinity is about any of those things. I don't think it's about aggression or domination. Like I think "don't hit a girl" is an idea that's very much tied into growing up as a boy. It's not like girls aren't taught "don't hit a girl," right? It's only boys who are taught that. But I think it's like a good thing that we teach boys not to hit girls. Like I think that's a good thing.
I think it would be a better thing if we just taught everyone to not resort to violence. You know, I think that would be ideal.
That would be ideal, but
treating everyone as equals.
Right, but we don't live in a perfect world. Like people are going to get into fights. It just is what it is. But I'd rather it makes more sense for society that when people do get into fights, it's not a guy against a girl. It's two guys, right? Because a guy fighting against a girl, he will beat the shit out of the girl and she could die. And that's like really, messed up. But yeah, I don't think masculinity is about like those things. I think being masculine it's kind of one of those things that's hard to explain. I think it's more about it's a tricky thing to explain. I think it has a lot more to do with just being confident in who you are and accepting things that are like we are in these perfect characters. I sort of see your point that like in order to be a man you have to go fishing, you have to watch sports. I don't do any of those things. I think sports are dumb. Or like at least I like playing sports. I don't like watching sports. I think fishing is a waste of time. So I don't do a lot of the things that are considered traditionally masculine by any stretch, but I consider myself quite masculine. So I don't think it's as much about like having to like follow this rigid set of like things you have to do, and just more about being comfortable with who you are and your wants and needs and all that. And men have sometimes different needs than women, right? And that's okay too. Women have different needs than men. But yeah, being comfortable with those needs and wants and embracing them. I think that's really what being masculine is about.
And I think that's an ideal form of masculinity, because I do think that masculinity has great traits. And as like someone who is on like the non-binary spectrum, I take both of my like the masculine attributes that I love and the feminine attributes that I love, and I mash them together all the time, because I think the reason I can't choose between one is because I love them both. But the thing about masculinity that like has been taught to people a lot of times is those ideas of you are supposed to be like, there's so many expectations that are brought upon us at a young age that we're expected to follow about like how to be a real man. And a real man is someone who stands up and fights. And a lot of times people will take that message that, yeah, standing up for what's right, I think is a not necessarily masculine trait, but just a good human trait. But some people will take that and see the model of how it's been displayed by our fathers, grandfathers, and celebrities and whatnot, and it's aggression, and it's to fight. It's to, I mean, men have the domestic abuse so much on our side. We also have so much alcoholism, and I'm not saying it's because we're bad people, but it's just because we have so many emotions balled up, and we don't know how to communicate properly, and we see people and it's encouraged that we're physical, because as kids, whenever we got in fights, it was, oh, well, they're just boys. Boys will be boys, instead of, hey, let's sit and talk about it, you know? So these tiny little things will just build up. And for people who can't break free from that, that is what the result of toxic masculinity is. But in general, I think the true definition of masculinity, and that's something that I really do find hard. What is to be masculine? To be masculine to me is to be sure. And I think that's something that also to be feminine is to be sure. But there's like a different version, you know? There's a masculine confidence and there's a feminine confidence. Both great, but there is a little bit of a difference. And I don't know how to put that into words.
But I think there's a lot of things that are associated with masculinity that are actually good things that I would teach my son. You know, let's go through some of them. Stand up for yourself. I think that's something that's taught to men, which is a good idea. You should stand up for yourself. What's another one? Stand up for people weaker than you and others. That's also a good thing. You should do that. Another one, you know, be a leader, right? Good idea. You should lead, you know, you should be a leader, right? That's going to help you. Oh no, what's another one? Take responsibility, right? Take responsibility for everything in your life. That's also a good idea. That's something I would teach my son. So I think the vast majority of things that are taught that are traditionally masculine are good things that boys should be taught, because that will help them be better people.
But what's interesting is I'm hearing that, but I'm also like, shouldn't women be taught those things? And they should. But is there like a different version? Because I think that women should be taught. I
would teach your daughter some different things than I would teach my son. Like, I don't think I would teach my daughter, like, I think I would stress less the whole like standing up for like other people, because she's weaker and I don't want my daughter to get the shit beat out of her. So I'd rather have her just play it safe. Versus if I had a son, like, I think he can take more physical chances. So I think there are some like practical differences between the sexes which do need to be accounted for.
Well, I mean, I'm not any kind of like, I'm a noodle over here, and my sister was always in sports and big and strong. I think that the things that you want to teach your son, and that I also would like, teach that. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, is that what masculinity is, or is that just what being a good person is? Because I would teach my daughter to stand up for herself, because I know that I don't want her to think that when people step on her or do things that she's just supposed to wait for someone. I want her to have the self-confidence to be able to stand up for herself. And I'm not saying get physical. I'm saying I want her to have that ability. I think
I would probably have my daughter take a jiu-jitsu class for sure, so she can like defend herself physically. Yeah, I would do that.
And to be a leader as well. I think that's something that a woman can do, and to stick up for people who are weaker than you, you know, and because then it'll just follow. Like, maybe there's a girl who's stronger than one of the guys, a younger guy, and there's a guy who's stronger than a girl, and that. So
yeah, but I think there's some practical, tangible differences between the sexes which are never going to go away, which shouldn't go away. And for example, in the dating marketplace, for a guy, in order to be successful with women, it's not enough for him to just be good looking, right? He has to have all his shit in order. He has to be confident. He has to be smooth. There's a whole bunch of things that need to happen for a guy to be quite successful in today's marketplace, versus for a girl, it's just literally comes down to being pretty and screening out assholes. So yeah, there's just some things that are so different that I think that you just can't raise a daughter exactly the same way as you would raise a son. There's just got to be some practical differences, because
I'm not saying that you raise them necessarily the same. Well, no, because I do believe that I think that genderless parenting is important, because the minute that you see your daughter or your son as something different than your daughter or son, in respect of who they are as a human, they're going to see that, and that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives, and to either resent you or to not grow and stunt their growth. You know, whenever they get older and show more of their personalities, I might start to treat and respond to them differently. But in the basis of the growing up, I think it's important, I guess, to treat them very equally, like, because I don't want to pass down the ideologies that I have been trying to fight for so long. I want the equality, and I want, sure, there is an understanding that the sexes definitely do have biological difference. They do, but we are moving past that. Now we are in this social ideas, and socially, and communication is something that all genders can
But there's
have.
some social differences between the sexes which are also not going away. Like, and
I think they can, or at least they can diminish. They already have had some, like the working mom. That used to never be an idea. That was something frowned upon. Divorce. That was something that would have never happened, and now it's, people are standing up for themselves. People are doing.
No, I'm talking more about like in terms of I don't know, like a girl goes to a club, she gets to skip the line and go to the cut the line versus a guy waits in line. Like there's things like that.
That's profitability because
right, but it has to do based on gender. They're not going away. Like we did an experiment. We took a male model. We created a Tinder profile for him. He got like 130 likes in 24 hours. We took a girl who's like grossly obese. She got 500 likes in 24 hours. So like there are some like big differences that I just don't think are going away in terms of mating and the sexual marketplace. Like I think I would want my son to be masculine, not like an overly caricature of a masculine person who's like, oh, I watch sports and I fucking jerk off to wrestling. Like that's kind of like a caricature of masculine, but more like someone like me who's just confident with himself and like isn't afraid to go for his wants and needs and like knows what he wants. And my daughter to be feminine, right? When I think of feminine, I think of someone like my girlfriend, right? Who's just like, she's like, yeah, she has a good job, she has a good career, but she's also very feminine and she's comfortable with her femininity. And she doesn't try to overcompensate or be overly macho to prove some weird social point. So I think that's kind of like where I would be at. I guess everyone can raise their kids differently, but
have you ever heard that meme question? Would you rather have a gay son or a thought daughter?
No, but that's a good question. Would I rather have a gay son or a thought daughter? I think thought daughter, but it would be a close one.
Really?
I don't know. It's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I think the thought daughter because she can still like give me grandkids and shit, and like, yeah, I think I would be leaning towards thought daughter. Although we might not know who her daddy is, who the dad of the kid is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I could take that.
Yeah.
But that's like one of those meme things that
I've never actually saw that one. That's an interesting one. I had to think about that for a second. Yeah. But yeah, was there any other topics?
Not necessarily. I know I've probably kept your viewers up for a long time than they wanted to, so I apologize about that.
No, it's all good, man. I appreciate you coming through, and yeah, man. Like one thing that I can respect is the fact that you're willing to have discussions. So I find that admirable when people are willing to talk to people who think differently than them. So definitely props for that. I do think that if more people had discussions, a lot of these big differences would go away because actually people are not as different as you think they are. But yeah, most people just don't want to have discussions anymore.
At all. And that is something I try to teach in my classes is to be open and to have conversations with people that you never thought you would before. Because I just love talking. Who wouldn't want to hear this voice? But no.
I like your name. You have a cool name.
Thank you. I just now noticed that your name was...
You just realized I'm Alex too?
I thought I was like, what does PWF mean? That's what I've been noticing like the whole time. No. And I was like, playing with fire, that makes sense. Okay. That also just clicked. Yeah. But it's two Alexes on a different side of the coin who can still be paying for the same thing, and that's the beauty of life.
Yeah, man, it was a good discussion. I appreciate you coming on, man. And yeah, wish you the best, bro.
Of course. Thanks.
Oh, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Take care, bro.
I don't know how to leave.
Well, that was a good discussion. I mean, disagree with some of the things he says, but he was nice. He was respectful. And I don't think we're that different. But yeah, I do disagree with like the genderless stuff. That's probably, I would say, our biggest disagreement. I certainly don't think like you should raise your kid like genderless, but everyone can raise their kid whichever way they want. Yeah. Right. My brain is fucking fried. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We got Tristan take clips here. All right, guys, we're gonna do thanks everyone who stayed in for this. We're gonna do one on Friday. I think we're gonna get a more juicy one. But yeah, I thought this was a good discussion. My brain is like super fried. John hasn't banned me yet, but he gets mad. I'm just reading some of these comments. They're pretty funny. This was interesting. Oh, BS, you push the radical crap to young minds. Who? Not me. I don't believe in anything radical. Alex, do a stream with John Anthony. Yeah, I mean, me and him do streams every so often. Please react to PA shows like Ross Jeffries. Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah, maybe there's a video there. Alex, who's the next OG to pick up me you have on? Yeah, I don't know, but I'll think on it and I'll see who else. But yeah, I do think the debate got a little repetitive at times because I've had this debate quite a few times. So I'll try to find a way to keep it interesting. Yeah, I'll find a way to keep the debates more interesting. I'll think of something. Anyway, guys, thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate you.